Did you know that for 76 years, Pluto was considered the ninth planet in our solar system? Then suddenly in 2006, scientists stripped it of its planetary status. This decision sparked one of the biggest debates in astronomy history. Some people were angry, others were confused, and many felt like Pluto got treated unfairly. But what really happened here? Why did astronomers suddenly decide that Pluto wasn't good enough to be called a planet anymore? Today we're going to dive deep into this fascinating story. We'll explore the history of Pluto's discovery, understand what makes a planet, and find out exactly why Pluto got reclassified as a dwarf planet. Let's start our journey back in 1930, when a young astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh made an incredible discovery. Tombaugh was working at the Lowell Observatory in Arizona, searching for a mysterious ninth planet. On February 18, 1930, he found it. There was a tiny dot that had shifted position between two photographs taken on different nights. This moving dot was Pluto, and it immediately became the ninth planet in our solar system. But here's something interesting that most people don't know. Even from the very beginning, Pluto was different from the other planets. It was incredibly small, much smaller than any other planet. In fact, Pluto is smaller than our own moon. It's also much farther away than the other planets, taking 248 Earth years to complete one orbit around the Sun. And its orbit is really weird too. While the other planets orbit the Sun in roughly circular paths on the same level, Pluto's orbit is stretched out and tilted. Sometimes Pluto is actually closer to the Sun than Neptune. But for decades, these strange characteristics didn't matter much to astronomers. Pluto was still considered a planet because, well, it was the only object we knew about in that distant region of space. This all started to change in the 1990s when astronomers began discovering more objects in the outer solar system. They found that Pluto wasn't alone out there. In 2005, everything changed when astronomer Mike Brown discovered an object called Eris. Eris was located even farther from the Sun than Pluto. And here's the kicker. Eris appeared to be larger than Pluto. This discovery created a huge problem for astronomers. If Pluto was a planet, then shouldn't Eris be a planet too? And what about all the other objects being discovered in the Kuiper Belt? This is when the International Astronomical Union decided they needed to create a clear definition of what makes a planet. In August 2006, hundreds of astronomers gathered in Prague for a historic meeting. After days of heated debates, they came up with three specific criteria. For an object to be called a planet, it must do three things. First, it must orbit the Sun. Second, it must have enough mass to be roughly round in shape. Third, it must have cleared its orbital path of other objects. Now let's see how Pluto measures up against these three criteria. First criterion, does Pluto orbit the Sun? Yes, absolutely. Second criterion, is Pluto roughly round due to its own gravity? Yes, Pluto is round. Third criterion, has Pluto cleared its orbital path? This is where Pluto fails. Pluto shares its orbital space with thousands of other objects in the Kuiper Belt. Because Pluto fails the third criterion, it got reclassified as a dwarf planet. This decision was incredibly controversial. Many people felt emotional about Pluto losing its planet status. After all, Pluto had been considered a planet for 76 years. Some argued that the definition was unfair to Pluto. Others pointed out that even Earth shares its orbit with asteroids, so maybe Earth shouldn't be a planet either. But this argument misses an important point about gravitational dominance. Yes, Earth shares its orbital path with some asteroids, but Earth controls those asteroids. Pluto, on the other hand, is just one member of a large community of objects. The reclassification wasn't meant to insult Pluto. And here's something really cool. Pluto is actually the prototype dwarf planet. It's the most famous member of this new category. Since 2006, astronomers have identified several other dwarf planets. Eris, Ceres, Makemake, and Haumea are also dwarf planets. In many ways, understanding that Pluto is a dwarf planet has made it more interesting, not less. The New Horizons spacecraft flew by Pluto in 2015 and sent back incredible photos. These images showed us that Pluto is a complex, fascinating world with mountains, plains, and possibly even an underground ocean. It's also worth mentioning that the debate about Pluto isn't completely settled. Some astronomers still disagree with the 2006 definition. But for now, the official scientific position is clear. Pluto is a dwarf planet because it hasn't cleared its orbital neighborhood. This classification helps us better understand the structure of our solar system. We have 8 traditional planets and several dwarf planets. The story of Pluto's reclassification teaches us something important about how science works. Scientific knowledge isn't fixed forever. When astronomers discovered that Pluto was just one of many similar objects, they had to revise their thinking. This doesn't mean the scientists were wrong before. But when new evidence emerged, they were willing to change their minds. That's actually one of the great strengths of science. It can adapt and improve as we learn more. Some people see Pluto's reclassification as sad or unfair, but I think it's actually exciting. We've learned that our solar system is more diverse and interesting than we thought. Pluto is still there, still orbiting the sun, still fascinating to study. The only thing that changed is our understanding of how it fits into the bigger picture. So there you have it, the complete story of why Pluto is called a dwarf planet. What do you think about this decision? Do you agree that Pluto should be classified as a dwarf planet, or do you think it deserves to be called a full planet? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more videos about space and science. And remember, whether we call it a planet or a dwarf planet, Pluto remains one of the most fascinating objects in our solar system.